Alright, what's up, guys? So we're just going to cover the first round of the March Madness tournament, and we'll start off with TCU versus Ohio State.
This game started off, but it was not a very close game at the end of the half. They made it to a 5-point game around 10 minutes remaining before taking the lead with around 7 minutes left. This was a very close game before TCU pulled off and hit a game winner. With around 4 seconds left, Micah Robinson hit a crazy three-pointer with about 57 seconds left before Bruce Thornton responded with a three-pointer of his own. After that, TCU marched down the court before Xavier Edmonds threw the game winner into the basket.
Yeah, overall, this game was pretty crazy. Definitely a great way to start off the tournament. I mean, that Bruce Thornton shot was crazy. Definitely a pretty cool way to end off his career. I'm sure he would have preferred the win. This game winner was pretty cool. First one of the tournament. And yeah, I mean, I'm excited for the rest of it. It's a great win for TCU and overall great tournament to watch. Traded threes for a little bit before Nebraska got a solid lead at the half. And after the first half, it was pretty much a blowout, and Nebraska won their first tournament game ever, which was pretty cool to watch. But yeah, this was definitely a good game. A little bit more of a blowout than I think a lot of people expected, just because this was Nebraska's first ever possibility. Oh, not really possibility, but first game to possibly win a tournament game. But overall, it was really cool to watch. And I really enjoyed watching them play. It's pretty cool overall. And I think a real standout from this game was their center. And, of course, Hoiberg's son, Sam Hoiberg. So, overall, a really good game.
And USF matched up. Again, this was pretty close game at the start before becoming a blowout at half. This turned into a pretty close game around 10 minutes marked. Again, Louisville pulled away in the end and pulled off the big win. Isaac McNeely was a very big standout in this game. And as you can see, there were a lot of fouls in this game. And sometimes it was kind of close. Like, for example, right now, South Florida's cutting it a little close. And then Louisville just started destroying. And then there was a blowout in the end.
Okay, next up we had High Point versus Wisconsin, which was the first upset of the tournament. Overall, this game was really close. And it was really a back-and-forth game. I mean, Nick Boyd was, of course, a standout from this game. Chase Johnson was great. A lot of people comparing him to Jack Golke. And this was just overall a great game, fun game to watch, and it's pretty amazing. It was also a pretty offensively minded game, and it's kind of surprising how close it was. Just because how good Wisconsin was to end the season. But with around 1 minute left, Wisconsin took a 4-point lead, and High Point was able to respond and ultimately end up with a win. All right, guys, so next we had number 16 Siena versus number 1 Duke. And this game was kind of close at half. I think it was about an 11-point game. So Siena was up on a 16 seed for, I think, the first time ever, which was honestly insane to watch just because of how much hype Duke had coming into this tournament. But yeah, this game was really close. I think Cam Boozer really came up clutch and was able to pull out the win for Siena. But overall, I think a little too close for the Blue Devils. Ended up only being, 6-point game here at the end. This is crazy overall. All right, next up we had McNeese State versus Vanderbilt. This was, I'm not really quite sure what it was going into the half. But overall, pretty close game. I'd say maybe like a 6-point game going into the half, with Vanderbilt having the lead. Let's see here. Got my clips. Shout out to March Madness and House of Highlights for the clips.
I didn't directly ask them, but I hope they're okay with it. It's a 5-point game going into half. But gradually, both teams came back, but Vanderbilt kind of just took the lead at the end and ran with it, and was able to kind of make it so it was out of hand near the end of the game, and it says right there, 0 field goals in the last 5 minutes. So Vanderbilt really just took over the game and kind of just finished it out and was able to win the whole thing. So pretty cool. I gotta wait for the freaking clips to fade out. I think it was an A-boy game by the end of it. So pretty good. Pretty cool. And that's the game.
Alright, y'all, I'm not going to lie. This one was super boring, so we're just going to skip it. Once again, this was just kind of a blowout, so we're going to skip it.
VCU versus North Carolina was actually a really great game. You see here, VCU was down an entire 18 freaking points, and they came all the way back and won the game in overtime, which was absolutely insane. Obviously, North Carolina didn't have Caleb Wilson, and this was like a commonly picked upset, but I'm pretty sure most people, when they saw that VCU was down freaking 18, they were like, oh, they're done for. But no, they battled all the way back and tied it maybe at like 70, 75 going to overtime, I think. 73, actually, which was just absolutely insane to watch. Watch basically this whole game, and it was just really an amazing game to watch. There's the shot to tie it. I think I should take the lead for VCU. And there is Hill, I believe, his game winner. And then that's
once again, this game was kind of a blowout all the way through, so we're just going to skip it.
Next up, we had another absolute banger, Texas versus BYU. This was an 9-point game going into half, which was pretty good. Pretty crazy to see Texas go up by this much on BYU and AJ DeBonsa. I think he played really good. I think he put upwards of 35 in this game. So it was kind of surprising that they lost, but, Texas basically dominated the whole game, and they were just able to out-rebound, out-tough BYU. And without Richie Saunders, it was kind of hard to get the offense going without, like, a sure first number 1 point guard. So overall, a great game. It got a lot closer near the end. Like you see here, it's a 9-point game. But overall, really great game and really close. All right, next up, we had number 10, Texas A&M versus number 7, St. Mary's. This was a pretty good game. I think it was mostly a blowout, with St. Mary's being it kind of close near the end. But ultimately, Texas Tech controlled most of the game. As you see here, I think it was a 15-point game going into half. Not quite sure about that one. 11-point game coming out of half here. Texas Tech extends the lead right there. And at this point, it's a 15-point game, but St. Mary's gradually clawed back. But I think by the end of it, it was just a complete blowout. And Texas, well, not a complete blowout, but a solid blowout from Texas A&M. All right, next up we had number 14 Penn, number 3 Illinois, number 9 St. Louis, number versus 8 Georgia, and then number 15 Idaho versus number 2 Houston. These were just all blowouts, so I kind of just skipped. Next up, we had number 14 Kennesaw State versus number 3 Gonzaga. This was a very close game at half. Right here, Gonzaga had a 3 to put them up by 6. Overall, really close game, really good game to watch. Here is game at 5 minutes. It's a 10-point game. But overall, pretty close game, pretty good game. Gonzaga ultimately pulled away at the end. I think it was an 11-point game here.
All right, so I kind of just grouped number 14 Penn, number 3 Illinois, number 8 number 9 St. Louis, and number 8 Georgia, and number 15 Idaho, and number 2 Houston, just because they're all such boring games. And pretty much
shot,
blowouts all the
7
way
minutes. And then I think Kennesaw misses this, and then Gonzaga controls the rest of the game pretty much. No, actually, I think they make this one. And no, miss it. And I think that was pretty much the game. But yeah, overall, really good game. Really fun one to watch. But Gonzaga ultimately pulled it off.
All right, guys. So next up, we have number 10 Santa Clara versus number 7 Kentucky, and this game was amazing. I watched it in the middle of my German class, and I was going insane for it. Literally screamed in the middle of the class. After Otega Owe hit that last minute shot to tie it up, and this was definitely a great senior moment for Otega Owe. And just pretty spectacular way to end your career. I mean, imagine hitting a buzzer beater to send it to overtime as one of your last shots in your entire career. I mean, that would just be spectacular. I mean, it's just insane how he did that. And I mean, the end of this game was insane. Overtime was great. I mean, obviously, I wanted Santa Clara to win. I thought they're a great team. I honestly had them going to the Sweet 16, which I'm a little pressed about, but it was still an amazing game to watch. And I'm glad I could watch it, even though my German teacher got really mad at me. So, overall, just a great game. Glad I watched it, and hope you guys enjoyed it as well. All right, guys. Next up, we had number 12 Akron versus number 5 Texas Tech. This was an okay game. I thought I'd just cover it just because it was a pretty close game. I think it ended up being a 6-point game. And right here, I think it was maybe also a 6-point game at half. Not quite sure about that one. But overall, it was a pretty good game, pretty fun game to watch. So thought I'd just cover it a little bit. But ultimately, Texas Tech ended up winning, even without JT Toppin. I think this was another very popular upset pick, one that I kind of fell into a little bit. But I'm kind of glad I picked it. Akron kept it close. Obviously, would have preferred to pick Texas Tech, but still a good game. Great to watch. Glad I watched it. And yeah, overall, great game. Also, just to add on real quickly, by the end of this game, it was kind of a blowout, but Akron definitely did fight to the end, which was pretty cool to watch. All right, next up, we had Long Island beating Arizona. Just kidding, go Sharks. But after that, we had Wright State versus Virginia, which was surprisingly close. Wright State here took the lead at 68-6-7. Sorry, I didn't mean that. Anyways, and Wright State kept it very close. I forget his name. White, maybe. Kept this game incredibly close. He had an awesome performance throughout this game. Hit clutch shot after clutch shot. But it's to do with the headbands. He was amazing. He was awesome to watch. And I think it was also a popular pick. Virginia, very popular pick to get to the Final Four. And it's kind of like a sleeper team overall, which was, I mean, obviously, they're a good team. They're a good team throughout this first game, and they're pretty amazing to watch. I mean, just look at this shot making by this guy, man. I mean, it's incredible. But yeah, great game. Pretty good to watch, and overall pretty enjoyable. All right, next up we had Tennessee State versus Iowa State, which Iowa State ended up winning. Hofstra versus Alabama, which this one was actually pretty dang close, surprisingly. I think this was also another very popular upset pick, which was a fun one to watch for about the first half. And even like 15 minutes into the second half, this was still like a pretty close game. It could have gone either way, but it really just ended up in a blowout for Alabama. And, I mean, when it came down to it, like, Hofstra just really couldn't hang with Alabama. I think around 4-ish minutes left, I mean, Alabama just absolutely pulled away. I think it was up to right here it's a 5-point, 5 minutes left. But I think it came all the way up to a 20-point game at the end, which was definitely not a reflection of how the game went at all. It was a lot closer than that, but overall, it was still a good game, fun to watch, and I'm glad Hofstra kind of hung around.
I forgot to mention, but we're on to day 2 here. Number 9, Utah State versus Villanova. This was another really good game, high-quality shot making. Wildcats stuck around for a while, but ultimately Utah State ended up taking the win, which was very cool to watch, definitely enjoyable. I like Utah State personally. I had Villanova on this one, but yeah, Utah State's a very entertaining team, and the shot making that they have is really good. Their clutch shot making was really impressive, and overall just a really cool team to watch so far. And Villanova kept it close, but ultimately they just couldn't hang around. Didn't have the same clutch shot making that Utah State had. But overall, it's still a really close game. Glad Villanova could hang around and give us one of the more entertaining 9-8 matchups, which we will also talk about another very entertaining 9-8 matchup with Iowa and Clemson. That was a great one. But overall, very good matchup. And one that Utah State was ultimately able to pull away with. So overall, very good game and pretty entertaining. All right, next up we had Miami, Ohio versus number 6 Tennessee, which was so devastating. I wanted Miami, Ohio to win so bad. I really thought they had the shot making to do it, but ultimately they ended up losing. All right, and then next up we had number 9 Clemson versus number 8 Iowa, which I kind of teased a little bit. Going into the half here, I think it was probably about a 10-point game. Yeah, like I said, it was a 10-point game around this point. I think Clemson made it a little bit closer at the end of the half here, but Iowa ultimately pulled off the win, and they're able to move on to the round of 32 and go on to take on Florida, who I think we've already covered, but right here it's a 6-point game, and Clemson has a little bit of life left in them to make it to a 4-point game. Crossover, bang. That's the dagger from Iowa. And they moved on to the round of 32. All right, next up we had UNI versus St. John's, which was another blowout. And then UCF versus UCLA was a very good game. 14-point game here at the end of the half. UCF makes a 3 to cut the lead down to 11. And then right here, they cut it down to 8. And switches to the end of the game. About 2 minutes left here. UCF cuts it to an 8-point game. And right here, they cut it to a 6-point game. A bucket. 2-point bucket. Bang. And then with about 56 seconds left, trying to come back. Another bucket from UCF. They had a lot of high-quality clutch scoring, but it just didn't come soon enough. And ultimately, UCLA ended up winning this game in pretty convincing fashion to move on to face UConn in the round of 32. So overall, pretty good game. All right, next up we had Queens versus Purdue, which was close at one point, but ended up being blown. And then we had Cal Baptist versus Kansas, which was not exactly a blowout. I think it ended up being a 6-point game. This is the end of the half here. Cal Baptist making some good shots. Actually, Kansas making some good shots to kind of just put it out of reach. And I think that was Darren Peterson. And then here at the end of the half, he makes a good 3 to... Okay, sorry. Like I was saying, Darren Peterson made a 3 to make the deficit a little shorter, or a little bigger for Kansas. Right here, Cal Baptist crossover, bang! They hit it from downtown to cut it to a 10-point game. And then they basically just trade shots back and forth here at the end of the game. Sorry about that. And we just made a close game here at the end. overall, pretty good game. Cal Baptist hung in there for a good amount of time. And Kansas was ultimately able to pull off the win. But I think it was a little too close for comfort for them. But overall, pretty good game. And like I said, Kansas was able to pull it off and pull with the win. All right, guys, we're on to our last game. And finally, we had Furman versus UConn, which, as a lot of the previous games, was a little too close for comfort for the higher seeds. UConn had Reed, who was just absolutely spectacular in this game. I think he went for 30 and 27, which is probably the most ridiculous stat line I've ever seen in a basketball game, outside of like Wilt Chamberlain from like 100 years ago. Not 100 years ago, like 60 years ago. But honestly, just ridiculous. All right, guys, what's up? This is the outro. Just want to say thank you guys for watching. I appreciate it greatly. I mean, this is a small channel. And I really appreciate you guys for watching. Make sure to like and subscribe. But seriously, don't worry about it. Hope you enjoyed the video. Hope you smiled. Have a good rest of your day. And I think Sweet 16 coverage will be coming out tomorrow. So get excited. Like, subscribe, like I said. But don't worry too much about it. Have a good day. And yeah, see you guys later. Peace.